So why don't we get started? This webinar is going to be about an hour. It's designed to be informative. It's something that we're going to share later on, and hopefully be able to broadcast and get the word out on the web, on Labor Vision, and some of our other social media channels. So let me introduce our panel today, and then I'm going to, open it up. So with us is John Burns. John is a field representative for AFSCME Council 94, which is one of the larger, if not the largest, public sector union in the state of Rhode Island. John's been an organizer for, as long as I've known him, but quite some time, and has had a lot of success in organizing. So it's good to have his voice as part of this panel. Joining him is Megan Carvalho. Megan is the organizing director for the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, Local 328. And she and her team have done some fantastic organizing over the last months and years, especially in some of the newer industries that I'm sure she'll talk about. Also with us today is Matt Taibi. Matt is the principal officer and secretary treasurer of Teamsters Local 251. Gotta mute my phone. Teamsters is great. I mean, they organize workers all over the place in Rhode Island. New technologies. And has really led Local 251 into be one of the more dynamic organizing forces across Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts. Also joining us is Justin Kelley. Justin is a business representative for the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, District Council 11, and has been an organizer in Rhode Island, again, for as long time, as long as I've known him. And with his work in the building trades, I thought his voice in particular would be important to talk about what his industry is doing and how they organize and how they talk to workers. So without further ado, I'm going to start with John Burns. John, I figured we'll start just ask you to unmute your phone. All right, John. So why don't we do this, John? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your union, and about, type of workers you generally organize.
Yeah. So my name is John Burns. I'm a staff representative here at Rhode Island Council 94. I've been involved with the union about 35 years. I used to be a public employee in Central Falls, the Public Works Department, and I started off doing organizing. So now I do organizing and also staff representative work. But Council 94 is part of the affiliate of AFSCME, which is the American Federation of State, County, Municipal Employees, which represents about 1.4 million people across the country. Council 94 is the state affiliate here in Rhode Island. We represent around 8,000 members here in Rhode Island and about 4,000 or 5,000 retirees. We represent from state employees, everybody from the Department of Administration to Department of Environmental Management to members at University of Rhode Island. And also in cities and towns, we represent everywhere from, the city of Woonsocket to the city of Newport to the, the town of New Shore, Block Island, all various cities and towns. And also in school districts, we represent a number of school districts here, a lot of the non-certified employees, anyone not a teacher in all different municipalities across the state. We also represent some private sector workers. We have everything from private school lunch workers who work for Shotwell's in North Smithfield, Lincoln, to bus drivers who work for Durham and Newport, Tiverton and First Student, and also some private wastewater and water firms with Suez, Jacobs. And so that's mainly where we make up like who we currently represent. And as far as organizing goes, we've organized over the last several years. We've organized, as I mentioned earlier, the food service workers, bus bus company workers, but also we've organized some independent unions. There was an independent union on Block Island, for example. The Warwick school employees were a long-time independent union. So those are some of the recent organizing drives we've done over the years.
So thanks, John, for explaining that. So for folks that are interested, how does AFSCME Council 94 approach an organizing drive and talking with new workers? And, maybe you can talk a little bit too about some of the work that you've been doing during the crisis to protect the members that you already represent.
Well, not only in an organizing drive, it goes anywhere from some places that we've tried to target where we represent similar public sector employees, and but sometimes it's someone will call and say they're interested in forming a union, and usually we meet with that person, and then we try to form a committee where to get some of their coworkers to participate and help trying to organize.
Excellent. And how about when you look at COVID and all of the things that we're dealing with in the pandemic and the shutdown, how's AFSCME responded, and what are some of the things you think that during non-union workers, especially in public service, but even, public service related, like privatized bus companies or other places, what do you think that they could benefit from with calling you and organizing a union?
Well, it's a lot of times there's language in the contract. Some of our contracts deal with, extra pay during a state of emergency. Some of that language is in different contracts, so enforcing that language. But a lot of this, in this period now, it's been about trying to protect the workers, everything from the PPE equipment to some employers have gone on a reduced work week and splitting shifts, splitting up workers, their co-workers, so all different things like that.
Fantastic. All right, John, thank you very much. We'll come back to you in a little bit. Next, I'd like to introduce everyone to Megan Carvalho. Like I said at the beginning, Megan is the organizing director for UFCW, United Food and Commercial Workers, Local 328. So Megan, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your work for the labor movement?
Hi, everybody. Yeah, thanks. So, as Patrick said, I'm the organizing director at Local 328. We represent nearly 11,000 workers in Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts, kind of like from Quincy on down through the South Shore, the Cape, the islands. You may be familiar with our union because we have the Stop and Shop here, but in addition to grocery workers, we represent workers at nursing homes and banks and food processing facilities, bus drivers, cafeteria workers, and more recently, we've started organizing a lot around the cannabis industry in both Rhode Island and Massachusetts. I think I like all of the unions in Rhode Island, we kind of do represent kind of a wide range of folks in a wide range of industries. Everything from kind of like tire recycling workers to, like I said, cannabis workers. So, we're kind of always willing to have a conversation with folks. If somebody has a question, we're always happy to talk to them.
So why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about what that conversation is like right at the beginning? Someone doesn't know much about the labor movement, but is interested in learning more. How do you start that conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. So we kind of always bring it back to the issues in the workplace, right? So, if I'm talking to a worker who's never, who doesn't know much about the union, like first I want to talk to them about what is making them make that first call to us, right? Are they not being paid fairly? Are they not being paid correctly? Are they just have nowhere to go? Concerns with health insurance or job security. So once we kind of have that conversation, we can talk about how the union can really be the solution to those problems. And something that I always like to stress is that a union is not something that just happens, right? You have to make the union happen to you, right? If you want a union, it's a lot of hard work and it's difficult, but it's certainly worth it. We don't like to organize at the UFCW. We don't like to organize kind of like in secret, right? If you want to form a union, you have to talk to your coworkers. You have to be willing to kind of put yourself out there. And we've had kind of a lot of success that way.
Excellent. And as it relates to the COVID-19 crisis, I mean, how do, first, how is UFCW working on that with their own members that they have? And then, what do you think that, a non-union worker would like to hear, from Local 328 about what they could do, during this crazy time and, how your union could help them?
Yeah, so certainly we've been in negotiations with all of the employers that our members work for around hazard pay and PPE, and making sure that both our members and the customers they serve, because a lot of our members are, customer facing, right, in grocery stores and nursing homes, how everybody can be as safe as possible, right? So we've, hazard pay in the grocery stores, hazard pay in the nursing homes. We've made sure to give out PPE to our members and also like really made sure that the employers are doing the right things. And in terms of non-union workers, I guess the other thing I would add is we've also, I'm sure like all of our sister locals, been in touch with elected officials to make sure that the working voices of our union members like are being heard. And it's not just kind of corporate interests whose needs are being placed first with the states. And in terms of workers on a campaign right now that after this down, so we have an election right now. The mail ballots are in the workers' hands and they're voting right now. And I've actually never met any of them in person.
Wow.
So I would say to folks that, you don't need to wait until everything reopens, especially for the essential workers, you should really, if you're thinking about forming a union, now would be the time to do it. And I will say that the workers that we're organizing, initially came to us with some COVID concerns. But, when it comes down to it, it's still about pay and benefits and respect and job security.
Absolutely. Oh, great. Well, hang tight while we continue on. I'm not going to call on him yet, but you probably saw another person join us. His name is Damian Oquendo. He's an organizer for SEIU Local 32BJ. Glad you could join on, Damian. But before next, why don't I bring into the conversation Matt Taibi from Teamsters Local 251, so we can talk a little bit more about the Teamsters, their role here in organizing in Rhode Island, and maybe a little bit about yourself too.
All right, thank you, Patrick. Thanks, everyone. Teamsters in this area. So we represent for a general local. So that means that some Teamster locals there are multiple locals in an area, and they have certain industry jurisdictions. We represent the whole wide range of who the Teamsters represent, and we're much more diverse than most. So I'm principal officer. We do have a full-time organizer. His name is Mike Simone, whose information is listed. And Mike was brought on about 6 years ago. I've been in office about 6.5 years, and he has a ton of experience, even going back 20 years prior, when he did a bunch of organizing for the local. So, and we all work together. There are other agents and staff that get involved with organizing, try to involve rank and file members when we can, and we try to organize quite a bit. We represent, like I said, pretty wide range of workers. Transportation and trucking, you would typically think in as far as Teamsters. So, small package, parcel, freight, oil drivers, construction drivers. There's all kinds of delivery, beer and liquor, beverage. So you think the typical Teamsters are drivers, which that's a lot of us. I came out of UPS, and for a little while before that, Super Value Warehouse. So transportation and warehousing is something I know very well. But we also represent healthcare workers. We have almost 2,600 members in our local who are healthcare workers, mostly at Rhode Island Hospital, and the skilled maintenance and clinical, non-clinical support, about 2,500 members there. And also skilled maintenance in a couple of different hospitals in the state, South County Hospital and Roger Williams Medical Center, as examples. We also represent manufacturing. One of our larger employers is Bradford Soap. We just organized a manufacturing plant in Narragansett by the name of Rogers Corporation. And we have another manufacturer by the name of Cooley Group. One of the largest industries we represent is also in transportation, but that's school bus. We represent well over 900 school bus drivers, mechanics, monitors, and aides in various communities throughout the state, and most recently ratified a first contract in East Providence with Ocean State Transit. And then we also represent some municipal and public sector employees in the area. So a lot of Department of Public Works, some housing authorities, and some cities and town hall workers. As far as most recent organizing, I mentioned a few of them. We've been particularly busy in the last year or so, but we ratified a first contract, like I said, at Ocean State Transit, which is a subdivision of Student Transportation of America. They're the second largest school bus transportation company in the United States. That's about 215 employees there.
Yeah, and that was a big win and a strong fight that the members put up there. They as they were trying to become members and organize their first contract.
There was a lot of activity around there. There was an informational picket at the East Providence School Committee meeting. There was quite a bit going on there, and it involved multiple union elections. So it was like two different organizing drives within one. So we organized the drivers first, and then the monitors and aides second, and then we had to get a contract for all of them. And it took a little bit, but we were ultimately successful in getting a first contract. We also, like I said, we organized Rogers Corporation. It's about 140 worker bargaining unit in Narragansett, and we're trying to get a first contract there. And then we have two other open negotiations at Riverhead Building Supply in Richmond, Rhode Island. We represent two other Riverhead Building Supply locations in the state. And so we're building density, as we would say. And then oil terminal operators at Sprague Resources in Rhode Island. And we represent oil terminal operators at Exxon and National Grid. So, we try to build off of industries and even employers where we have density already to be able to strengthen our existing contracts and improve working conditions for new workers.
Excellent, thank you very much. And maybe in a little bit we can come back to that point about companies that have some of the workers organized and some of them who are not, and how they can help how the workers can help each other to build power at the workplace. All right, next I'm going to turn things over to Damian. Damian's an organizer with SEIU Local 32BJ and has been doing phenomenal work across really Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and really the whole region and the workers that he represents. So Damian, why don't you tell everyone a little bit about yourself and about 32BJ?
Alrighty, thanks for having me. So my name is Damian Oquendo. I'm an organizer with SEIU 32BJ. We basically represent workers all throughout the Northeast, and we have a big group membership in New England. We represent about 18,000 people all throughout New England. We represent cleaners, security officers, window washers, and doormen. And basically, we just represent a lot of people throughout the state. We have a good amount of cleaners in Rhode Island. I would say probably about 600 that we represent out in Rhode Island right now. And we basically had plans to work on organizing the security officers in Rhode Island.
Mute myself. So, any recent successes in organizing that you want to talk about, or and maybe you can talk a little bit about how 32BJ and how SEIU approaches organizing. When a non-union worker says, "Hey, tell me more," how do you guys approach it, and what do you say?
Yeah, so I would say some of the recent success that we had was we've just been able to organize Logan Airport to organize the workers at Logan Airport, which is about 1,200 people, I would say. So we were able to organize the security officers that work there, the people that do the wheelchairs, people. We already had the cleaners there, so we've basically been able to get wheelchair people in, people that clean the planes, and also the security. And that was a long fight. I would say it's been almost 10 years.
Wow.
And we finally got the last company to sign, I would say about 3 or 4 months after about a 4-year constant battle. It was a 4-year constant back and forth, but we finally able to get them to agree. I would say with people that don't really know how we organize, basically what we do is our goal is to try to get the workers as involved as much as possible. Usually when I'm talking to a worker that doesn't really understand much about the union, my biggest thing is to help them explain that there's a better way to go about how they're doing their work, in terms of they can have better wages and better benefits. For an example, one of the company that we did organize at the airport, they would basically cut people's hours without even really letting them know, or firing people without any type of justification. And then talking to workers, we had to kind of put it into their mind that this isn't right, and this is something that you can change, but you have to be willing to do the work. You have to be willing to kind of put yourself out there and be able to be vulnerable enough to be able to talk against the company and want to see things change.
Excellent. So as this pandemic has kind of, put a lot of the members that you represent right on the front lines of the response, how has 32BJ been working with that? And as it relates to organizing, if there's some non-union worker out there that is worried about, their health and safety as a result of the pandemic, what's something that you would tell them, about how the union can benefit them the most?
So one thing I will say is that basically in terms of the organizing, I think right now is one of the prime times to really organize, because even though we have a situation where people can't meet in person per se, and they can't meet or we can't talk in person, so we have to social distance, I think there's still an opportunity to be able to organize. Another small success that we just had recently is we were able to sign security officers at the aquarium in Boston. And we did most of that without even meeting them. We just did that through calling people and sending text messages and basically sending a digital card out to have them sign and become a part of the union. I would say in terms of our response to the COVID-19 situation, our political department has worked a lot in Massachusetts to make sure there's a bunch of benefits in terms of supporting workers, in terms of having hazard pay, PPE, making sure people have the right equipment. At the airport, there's been a lot of conversation between the union and Massport to make sure that the employers are making sure they're providing people with gloves and masks, and just making sure that there's some type of safety precautions, because being at the airport is definitely a bigger risk, being that so many people are coming in and out. So I know we've had a lot of conversations with Massport and state legislation to try to get things passed for the workers.
Excellent, thank you. So it's interesting. We'll come back to this, but both you, Damian, and Megan have talked about organizing drives where there's really been no contact physically with, with the workers. And I think we're all going to experience that as union organizers in the, the weeks and months, if not years to come. So, maybe in a couple minutes, we can talk a little bit more about how that worked, especially about the digital card thing, because at some point I'm going to ask everyone about, what is this thing called a union card, and how does that work when it comes to organizing? But, I'm going to ask Justin Kelley from the Painters Union to introduce himself, talk a little bit about his organization and some of the things that he's been working on lately. Justin?
Sure. Patrick, thanks for having me, and I'm glad to join everybody else here, which is a great panel of folks that's putting some time out here to help people. And my name is Justin Kelley, as Patrick said. I'm a business representative as well as organizer and political director for the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades. We're a trade union. We primarily represent craft workers in construction, and particularly here in Rhode Island, we represent commercial painters, commercial drywall finishers, glazers, those folks that put in glass and install windows. If you look at the outside of a large glass building, it's called a curtain wall system. That's something that glazers do. We also represent industrial painters, bridge painters, tank painters, folks that do sandblasting and work with industrial coatings. In other parts of the country, we represent other crafts and trades, floor coverers, trade show representatives, show display workers, and public employees. But that's primarily what we do here. But what we do is a little different in terms of how we organize, and we can go into that a little more later. But one of the things that we do, all of us as trade unionists in all of our organizations, but with my organization, we make sure we take care of our own. So we invest a lot of our own money would be, it's part of our total package compensation from the employer. And we spend that on training, skill training, safety training. Construction is inherently dangerous business. And it makes it, something where there's horrible injuries and deaths in construction, particularly in the non-union aspect of construction. And so we spend a lot of our time and money making sure that people are trained and aware of how to work safely, right? So one of the other things we do is we take our own money and we invest it in both healthcare and retirement, right? So that you're able to do something with your family, and that you don't have to work until you're dead, right? A lot of people in construction, you physically can't work past a certain time just because of the way your body gives out. So we make sure that we have both a defined benefit and a defined contribution, pension, and annuity plan available. And so one of the things that happens with that is that we oftentimes will have contractors approach us. And that's something that's unique to construction, where every other industry, you have to have an election of the workers to get union recognition. We actually have what's called a pre-hire recognition, where a contractor can sign party to our contract, our master agreement, and then access the skilled trained manpower out of our union hall, the folks that have gone through and received that training, right? But, we always involve working people, and we always involve the workers at a shop if it's something where we're looking to bring the union to that shop. We have thousands of people who apply to be members every year. Some of them already work in the industry, many who don't. We interview as our capacity allows, and we refer inexperienced applicants over to a pre-apprenticeship program that we work with called Building Futures. We also love when workers from a non-union shop come and apply, particularly if they're been there for a while, or they're a foreman or a superintendent, a lead man. And we love to be able to take them away from an employer that's not treating them right and place them with one of our signatories where we know they're going to make the wages and benefits that they deserve and have the working conditions they deserve. The unfortunate reality, though, is that we can't put everyone to work that comes and applies at our union hall. And so what we do is that we can then help you get things changed at your workplace if we can't put you to work with us right away. So I would encourage anybody, if you're out there and you're listening to this, is if you have an unsafe workplace, call us, contact us. If you're being exposed to unsafe heights are not given proper equipment, masks, gloves, call us. If you're being forced to work with bad or broken equipment, ladders, scaffolding, staging, call us. If your job site in general is hazardous, call us. If you're given equipment that doesn't work right, call us. If you're tired of poor wages, bad benefits, disrespecting the job, or you just want more information, call us. And that really goes for all of the organizations that are here today. But, you know, if you're in construction, whether you're a painter or one of the other crafts that I talked about, or any other trade, contact us, and we can put you in the right place. We can put you to the right place.
Thank you very much, Justin. That was,
You're welcome.
well, everyone, that was all very helpful and informative. Obviously, you know, we have some very skilled organizers that live in our region and work in this area. And, you know, part of that skill set involves a passion for justice for working people. So it's obvious that all of you, you know, are displaying that. You know, I'm very interested in, you know, this idea that Megan touched on and Damian touched on about organizing in these current times, and, you know, some of your recent experiences with, you know, union elections when you know, it's beyond what we normally do. You know, in my experience as a union organizer, you try to get people together, you form a committee, you have conversations, you have one-on-one conversations, you answer questions, you might even, you know, knock on their door at home so you're away from the workplace. And, you know, hopefully we'll be able to continue doing that. But, you know, Megan and Damian in particular, what if you could share some of your more recent experiences with this new environment? Damian, I'm especially interested in this digital card idea that you were talking about, but I know, Megan, you mentioned it too. So I don't know who wants to go first. Maybe Megan, then I'll go to Damian.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so it is different. And I think, you know, even once we're kind of back into like a more normal situation, I think some of the stuff that I'm learning about organizing right now, I think I'll continue to use in other times. But what we're doing is, you know, we use an app called GroupMe. It's just like a group chat app where we have all of the workers who want to be in it in that chat. So we're kind of constantly communicating all day long. We also have Zoom meetings. Like Damian, we did use digital cards. You know, it was very seamless. It actually was, you know, shorter to fill out than an actual handwritten card. And it seemed to work really, really well. You know, I think one of the things that is so important in any campaign, but especially when you are not able to go talk to workers in person, is you need to have a strong committee. And the place I'm organizing right now, we have a wonderful committee, and they're constantly checking in person because they're at work in a way that, you know, organizers can't do right now. You know, that's important. Be very important right now. You know, we still do the normal things, right? We have one-on-one conversations, right? Now they're just over the phone or via text. You know, we inoculate. We've been doing a little bit more of like sharing written information, just kind of like via Google Docs or emails, whereas normally, I don't normally tend to rely on that kind of stuff, but here I think it's been very helpful.
Excellent. And Damian, how about you with the digital cards and, you know, talking with, you know, non-union people these days about, you know, 32 BJ?
I think it's actually funny because a lot of what Megan doing, we kind of do the similar thing. So we've basically been doing Zoom meetings, which have been helpful to have people basically talk to each other and interact with us. So even though we're not seeing each other in person, there's still interaction there. And what we do is we use an app that the union has called Purple Spoke, where we're able to send out messages to a bunch of people at a time. And from the general interest that we get from people replying to the messages, we keep a constant communication to kind of build and grow with those people to make sure that we can have everybody talk with each other. They're doing a lot right now at the airport with forming the committee, because right now they're basically trying to start the negotiation talks to build the first contract out. So I know Zoom has been used a lot, and there's been a lot of meetings on Zoom, and also they're still doing some organizing with some companies at the airport. And Zoom, they've been doing trainings using Zoom and also just meetings. So I think Zoom is very valuable at this time right now. I recently did the work with the aquarium with the security officers there, but it was pretty much straightforward with just calling people, explaining who I am, what is some of the benefits that they will get in joining the union. And I was trying to let them know of why it's important at this time, being that a lot of companies are downsizing just because they don't need as many people. And I think a lot of people understand that and understand the importance of trying to organize at this moment.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. You know, in my years as an organizer, I found that the idea of putting together a committee is the most important thing, like you were talking about, Megan. Because, you know, with folks that are in non-union situations, they might not have as much experience with working in a unionized environment. And maybe they haven't come from a union family, so, you know, the union is really new to them. And oftentimes, I've been surprised how often, actually, folks think that, you know, some stranger who they really don't know is going to come in and, you know, I don't know, wave the union magic wand and make everything better. And I think, you know, we know as organizers that you build a union from the ground up. You know, you don't come in and plant it, you know, and give people their union. You ask unorganized workers to start from the ground up and build their own union where they work. And the cornerstone of that is the organizing committee. So I don't know if, you know, John, Matt, Justin, if, you know, we've heard from Megan and Damian, but, you know, how important is this committee? And, you know, and from your point of view, how does that work, you know, when you guys do organizing drives?
Patrick, let me jump in real quick. You know, one of the distinct aspects in construction is that, like I talked about, sometimes we get members that haven't had to do any organizing to become a member. They've applied based on the abilities they have and the skills they have. And so one of the things that we do is, you know, we recognize that sometimes leaves a gap in knowledge. And we do a lot of internal organizing at that point. So it's kind of almost like going back and doing exactly what everyone's talking about, which we do too in new organizing situations, where, you know, the union is a verb. It's not some outside entity. It's what you're doing on the job. Yeah, there's legal aspects. There's a contract that you can get in place and you get legal union recognition, but it really depends on you, right? And that's, you know, it's something that we all share, but, you know, that internal organizing. So just, you know that if you become a member of a trade union through an applicant process or an apprenticeship, you know, you're still going to get a lot of the same information and, you know, be part of something, right? Because that's what this is it's what you do day in and day out that make these organizations what they are.
Yeah. John, you're still muted.
One of the things we've experienced now, it's been a little interesting, is like, well, first off, with the state board here, the labor relations board here, you cannot use the electronic card now, so you physically have to get the cards. So one of the things we've doing was kind of surprising to me too, like just simply doing mailings with phone calls with a card, like how many people sent back the card. Normally, in a normal organizing drive, obviously you have their coworkers getting the cards from them, but in this particular case, the group we've worked on now and filed a petition for, that we can't, they're not working together right now. They're all out of work. So doing things through the mail is a little interesting now that it seems to, in the type of crisis we're in, I don't know if people are more interested in their mail, but certainly some of that aspect is work where normally in the past, as many of you know, like if you tried to do mailings during an organizing drive, you wouldn't get a lot of response, but it takes a lot of follow-up with phone calls and everything else, but it's actually, things are working a little differently during this crisis and people seem to be responding to stuff. So it's been difficult, and that's particularly because workers aren't physically working together. They're all out of work at the moment.
Excellent. And Matt, what about you from, that idea of the importance of forming a committee with your coworkers, and how do we overcome what we're dealing with now to deal with it?
So we have the, like to echo what Justin said, like we take that as an approach with our local, and as we have to have an organizing model for our union as a whole. So, and then that translates into new organizing drives. So, when we know that there's a particular workplace, and just as if there's representation issues, we have to reinvigorate that and organize that place. So it takes, starts from the stewards, the key activists, building that out, and always involving new people, changing people's opinions about the union, the benefit of being in a union, and how it all works, and educating and communicating as often as possible. So that, in a new organizing drive, and folks who reach out to or our organizing department can go through all of that, to be able to reach the group. And if it's a smaller group, you need less people. If it's a larger group, now you need to be able to identify the leaders. You need to identify the folks that can bring people together and have an influence. And it really shows in the ability in whatever votes that you have, contract votes, representational votes, of how strong that unit is based on the strength of that committee. Are those folks, communicating with their circle of coworkers and friends? Are they strong? Do they get the right messages across? Is there good communication? Because ultimately, going forward, it's about even if someone voted no in a representational election or voted against a first contract, you have to build that solidarity in the bargaining unit going forward, and make people understand that, in one issue, something may not benefit you exactly, but in the overall scheme, it benefits you because you have a voice on the job. And these are all, this is all part of the message. And knowing the issues and listening is a big part of that. What's going forward. Right now we're fortunate. Well, I guess we don't have as much experience right now in not being able to be in person, mostly because we've had so much organizing that we're trying to wrap up. But I guess it's a good problem to have.
Yes, it is.
But I'm sure we'll have more in the coming up. So that'll be a challenge, and that's something that we certainly want to learn to be able to adapt to these changing times.
So we have represented on, in the panel here, public and private sector, manufacturing and retail, building trades and building service, unions. You're all very different, but you've all been talking about a lot of the same thing. It's communication, it's trust, it's getting information out, building strong organization from the ground up. But you've each touched upon kind of, a couple of things that maybe folks that are less familiar with the role of an organizer and how to form a union is, what are these card things that we keep talking about, and what are they for? Which leads probably for us, an obvious question, there's an election. What's that all about? What are unions and union organizers use union cards for, digital or otherwise? And what's the purpose behind that, so people could know? Anyone want to jump at it?
Yeah, I can do. So I know much more about cards and just the card authorization process. So basically what the cards are used for is when we get to the point with an employer where we can sit down and we can come to some terms of agreement. Sometimes it's an election. Sometimes it is a card check. When you get the cards, basically it's authorizing that the majority of the people want the union. So basically it's just a process of educating the worker on what a union card is, why it's important, and why we need to have them fill it out. it's never an easy conversation. Sometimes it is, but most times it's not. I can just use my experience with working at the airport. There were people that didn't understand English very well, or didn't really have grasp of some of the words of the union card, or what are they signing, and oh, what is this about dues? So, there's just a long process to just educate people on cards and making sure they understand before they fill them out, because you never want somebody to fill something out without really having a grasp of what they're doing. I think some of the things that help that we all talked about, though, is just having leadership within a company where people can talk to their coworkers, kind of explain things to them. And I think with certain industries, especially where there's language barriers, I think that's like one of the most important things, because people can translate for you and be able to get the message across to somebody that may not understand what you're saying.
No, exactly. I mean, who else wants to weigh in, on the idea of the importance of getting members to sign, the union card, and how that's a demonstration of support, and maybe, the approach that you take in that. In my years as an organizer, when I worked as a private sector organizer, we wouldn't proceed, just because the law says you have you need 30% of the people to sign a card to move forward. When I was doing, street organizing work, the unions would insist upon getting 60 to 70, if not more, of the potential members to sign the cards. Who wants to talk about why that's one approach, and why unions take it?
Oh, I just want to add one more thing.
Sure.
The biggest thing I would say too is when people fill out cards, I always tell them that even though you're filling out a card and you want to be a part of the union, that's just the first step. Like, just filling out a card doesn't mean like we've jumped through most of the hurdles. Like, you still have to be active and you still have to be engaged. And I think there's some workers that you'll find through organizing that there's some workers that are just going to sign a card and then that'll be it. But then you'll find workers that do want to take the next step. But I completely understand with the 60% to making sure you have a good amount, because it's a way better turnout, especially with finding leaders.
Yeah. Megan, what do you think about that process and how it's worked for you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with, I think what everybody else has said. What we always do is we explain that, back when we only used paper cards, right, I would say, it's really just an index card that we bring to the National Labor Relations Board, which is like the government agency that oversees union elections. And it just proves that we have enough people to move forward through this process. And so, like you were saying, Patrick, the law requires 30%, but you can't win unless you have 50% plus one. So we always make sure that we file with, 60, 70, 80%. Because, between the time that you file for the election and the time that you actually have the election, there's going to be people who quit, get fired, change their mind. So you want to have that buffer. Because once you get to the point of signing cards, you don't want to go forward unless you think that you have a good chance of winning, right? It's a lot of work. You're putting yourself out there in many different ways, and you just want to make sure that you go through it and you win.
So, Matt and John, you guys have both, private and public sector, experience. This idea, so you've talked to the workers, you've got the committee together, you've had, majority and supermajority sign cards. What happens next?
Well, I'll hop in. But so basically, yeah, we either use cards or petitions. It all depends. It depends on the workplace. But yeah, we like to have 70% or more. And what the more the better, obviously, because during that time, well, now, and I won't go into boring details of NLRB election rules, but basically, once you get that process started, then now if the employer didn't already know that there's union organizing going on, now they definitely know, and now is when employers often hire, union busters. So they hire these consultants that, essentially waste the employer's money and try to tell the workers why they don't need a union. And it's mostly lies, but the key is catching them in those lies, and that's all about building trust. Once we're identifying what they're lying about, it's usually the same, regurgitated lines about initiation fees or dues or, all these issues, and you see them almost every single time. And it's a matter of cutting through that, having the trust of the folks, having a good committee and the strength of the group, knowing that that's why, 70+%, because you may lose a few people when it ultimately comes down to a vote. Some people change their mind for whatever reason. A union buster will get to them. Someone will, won't stay strong enough during that whole process, and that, that can change even after you win. You want to bring those people in, going forward. But that's definitely a difficult time, and it tests the group. It tests the strength of the group, because organizing is not just this, oh, here you go, here's these cards, and now the employer is going to say, all right, well, here's this great contract for you, and we're just wonderfully educated in how we treat you poorly, and now we're going to change. No, not without.
It's not that simple.
No, I wish
Just being right doesn't make it happen.
No. Oftentimes it's, we don't want it to be, we don't set out it to be contentious, but it can be. Employers can violate the law. We can resort to filing unfair labor practice charges. It oftentimes can lead to, more collective action, where you want to have the ability of the group to say, we're tired of this, we're going to stand together, even if it's just symbolic actions. But you build up to that, and that's why you need to communicate and get the trust of people and know the issues going into it, so that, when you get up to the point of the election, now you feel confident. And at that point, sometimes it does happen where, you go through it and you figure out you don't have the support, for whatever reasons. And at that time, you have to make a hard decision. Do you go forward with it, or do you pull the petition, you pull the election? Because
Pat, let me jump in on that note. I'm sorry, Matt, did you have more?
no, that's good.
Because I think it speaks to something that we all know here on this panel, right? The reality is that the labor law system in this country, and the system of how you get a union, is very broken, right? Even with that broken system, it's doable, right? So, if you want a union at the job at where you work, reach out to us again. But everybody should know that it's been set up since the 1930s that the deck is stacked against us. It should be something as simple as, you want a union, you talk to your coworkers, you all sign a card or a petition like we're talking about. Okay, you present it to the employer, it's certified by a neutral body, now you have a union. The unfortunate reality is it's set up so that after you have that process where you get those cards together, you have to then file for an election period where, like Matt said, you're now public with your employer, who may stupidly want to try to fight against having a union. They don't want to respect your wishes as a group of workers. They're going to spend untold amounts of money to get a union busting firm to come in. You go way back, they used to, get guys with guns. Nowadays, they get lawyers and guys with briefcases, and they come and they sell you a bunch of bullshit. And there's no other way to put it, because it's bullshit, it's lies. It's a great book. You can Google it. It's called Confessions of a Union Buster. There's other analyses out there of the industry. So it's all to say that we need some major reform at the federal level, which would say that working people should be respected, and that it should be easy to form a union, not hard, right? Because I think if you're watching this, you probably are interested in forming a union. And it should be an easier process. So know that it's hard, but if you reach out to us, we're here to help you.
Excellent. Thank you, Justin, very much. So listen, our time here is coming to a close. I want to be respectful of your time as organizers, and get you back out in the street talking with workers as fast as possible. I just want to go around real quick just to say, thank you very much, and just, let you one more time say your name and the best contact way people can get in touch with you. So looking at my screen, I'll start at the top and work my way around. So John, you wanted to real quick?
Contact me. The easiest way is you have my contact information on the screen, but you can call me at John Burns, and my best way is my cell phone at 401-486-1995. And also, people, we always tell people while we're organizing too, just Google Council 94, Rhode Island Council 94. Just Google them and see what comes up, and you'll see all the different issues that we have fights with management over. That's the easiest, way to see the fights that we've had over the years with different administrations and different groups. Just Google us. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Megan?
Yeah, so thanks so much for having me. I'm Megan Carvalho. I'm the organizing director at 328. Just to reiterate, the best way is probably just to call or text me on my cell, which is here, but it's 401-834-9089. You can also check us out on Facebook or Instagram. Instagram is mostly for our cannabis division, but certainly if you message either Facebook page, we'll get back to you. We monitor it constantly. Thank you.
Thank you. Matt?
All right, yeah, my name is Matt Taibi. I'm the principal officer of Teamsters Local 251. You want to call our organizing department, 401-434-0454, extension 231. We're also on Facebook, General Teamsters Local 251, and our website, teamsterslocal251.org, and we'll respond because we want to hear all your concerns.
Thank you. Justin?
Yeah, sure. I'm Justin Kelley again with the Painters Union. You can reach out to us. There's IUPAT.org. That's IUPAT.org. We also have a general line for anybody that's in the trades that might be interested. It's 401-946-0495. Same thing, you can Google, District Council 11. That's my organization. Hey, listen, I don't want to take us too much over time, but I just got to take 1 minute and just address everything that is happening out in the world right now too, and the anger that's out there over the extrajudicial murder of George Floyd. That was atrocious. We mourn that. It's wrong. Folks are out there in the streets because a man was basically killed for $20. And there's 40 million people plus that are out of work right now because of the pandemic that's ravaging us, killing mostly Black and brown people. And it's wrong, and it's really laid bare the structural racism and inequity of our country. And so, in the words of the hip hop artist Killer Mike from Run the Jewels, get out there. If you're mad right now, plot, plan, strategize, organize, mobilize. If you need justice at work, contact one of us. We're here to help you.
Well said, brother. Damian, why don't you wrap us up here?
All right. So again, my name is Damian Oquendo. I'm an organizer with SEIU 32BJ. And I would say the best way to contact me would be through my cell phone number, which is 617-935-5533. Also, I would just tell people, like everybody else has said, is just check out our website. Just look us up on Google and look up some of the things that we do. We do a lot. We do a lot everywhere. Like I said, we're up throughout the East Coast, so we're in a lot of states right now. So I would say just look us up, and thank you for having me.
Thank you all. Brothers and sisters, thank you very, very much. This has been great. We're experimenting, we're trying, so hopefully we'll see what happens. On behalf of the Rhode Island AFL-CIO, and especially for President George Nee, who I know was attending the webinar, for giving us the chance. My name is Patrick Crowley. I'm the Secretary Treasurer, Rhode Island AFL-CIO, and thank you very much for attending, and we look forward to hopefully working with you to build worker power and forming unions at your workplaces.
Thank you for joining us for this edition of Labor Vision. We appreciate your input and encourage your comments. Labor Vision can be seen on this channel 3 times each week: Tuesday at 7 p.m., Thursday at 8 p.m., and Saturday at 5 p.m.